Joel and Ellie eventually leave Billstown and Bill to his lonesome and head to Pittsburgh. Now that's everything that happened in the game, and literally zero of that carried over into the show. It was a little bit convenient for me that, you know, the first non-infected motherfucker who falls into one of your holes in 4 years just happens to be gay and also into the stuff you're into. Like, really? That's so crazy. So the Alright y'all, welcome back, and today we're gonna be talking about episode 3 of The Last of Us show on HBO. Now I already know that I'm late to talking about this episode. I was out of town over the weekend for a baby shower, so I missed when it originally aired. Then I was kind of busy doing work and other stuff, so I wasn't able to watch it until later on in the week, but hey, we here now. But leading up to this episode on Twitter, I was seeing a bunch of news outlets, producers, actors, and just a whole bunch of other people talking about how hype episode 3 was gonna be. And then, when the show aired, I was seeing a lot of mixed reactions from people. Some people saying that it was ass or it was boring. Other people saying that it was amazing and it was beautiful. So, is episode 3 as ass or amazing as people are making it out to seem? Let's find out. Oh yeah, and y'all seem to like the live reactions from last week's video, so they'll be returning for this video and for the rest of the videos in this series. So if you haven't checked out the previous video, go and check that out. Link will be in the description. Oh yeah, and also, spoiler warning, of course. But yeah, if you're new here,
Good ning noon, Tomer Tuck. I'm ning ning after evening quo, noon hog.
don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay up to date with me so you don't miss any future videos. Thanks for watching, and I hope you guys enjoyed. And without further ado, let's get it! So going into this week's episode, I already knew it was going to be an interesting one, because I knew they were going to be diving into Bill's character and telling more of his origin story, but I didn't know just how much of his story they were going to tell. But we'll get into that later. So this episode starts off with Joel and Ellie, seeing as in the previous episode, Tess got infected and ended up sacrificing herself to buy Joel and Ellie some time to get away from an infected horde. And it's very obvious that there's some tension out the gate, and it's quickly resolved. Kinda.
Nobody made you or Tess take me. Nobody made you go along with this plan. You made a choice. So don't blame me for something that isn't my fault.
And I really love what Ellie says here, because this is a pretty big theme in the series that doesn't get talked about enough. That being, your choices are ultimately your choices, and you have to be able to live with what comes with them. Anyway, Joel and Ellie continue on their way to Bill and Frank's, and they eventually stop at an old convenience store where Joel says he has some supplies stashed. And in this section, we get some cool homages to the game, as well as some witty dialogue between Joel and Ellie.
Is there anything bad in here?
Just you.
Ah, getting funnier.
Oh yeah, and I just wanted to say that I'm all in on Bella and Pedro playing Ellie and Joel. I just want to let you guys know that I am all in on this dynamic they got going on. But another thing that happens in this scene is that Ellie finds an infected trapped under some rubble underneath the convenience store. And then she does some weird shit. Ellie a psychopath or what? This felt super off to me, and I guess they were trying to go for one of those do I have what it takes to actually kill one of these things type of moments, but it just came off kind of strange to me. But anyway, they continue on to their journey, and we get to see the famous shot from all the T-Lu promos. Hey, it's the shot. And then we get to a very interesting part where Joel and Ellie are basically standing in front of a mass grave. And we learn through Joel that Fedra straight up just lied to and killed people who they couldn't fit into the quarantine zone.
These people weren't sick.
No, probably not.
That's tough.
I killed them.
Dead people can't be infected.
Which is super fucked up and continues to paint the picture of how bad Fedra and the quarantine zones actually were. And this is where the biggest adaptation that this show has taken to date begins. Now, like I said, going into this episode, I knew that they were going to be introducing Bill and telling more of his story. And I was interested in this concept because I definitely wanted to see how Bill basically became the Bill that we know in the game, and also how Billstown came to be. But I also knew that the show was going to go more in depth on Bill's partner, Frank, which I'm just going to address the elephant in the room, which is Bill's gayness. Now, in the game, it's not directly said, but it's pretty implied that Bill is gay.
Once upon a time, I had somebody that I cared about. partner.
Because in the game, we find out that Bill had a partner named Frank who lived with them in the town. And after exploring a little bit more of Bill's town, we actually find Frank's body. And we learn through a letter that Frank wrote Bill that he committed suicide after getting infected. And we also learn through that letter that Frank pretty much hated Bill. And from Bill's reaction to seeing Frank's body and reading that letter, of course, you know, he's like, oh yeah, I hate Frank too. But you can tell that he's pretty upset and kind of heartbroken that Frank is actually dead. So ever since Bill was introduced in 2013, I always interpreted him as being gay. And I feel like the reason why they were a little bit more tongue-in-cheek with this section in the original game was because it was 2013 and characters being openly gay in video games was definitely a lot more taboo back then. So as far as people who originally played the game saying that, oh, Bill being gay kind of came out of nowhere, did it really though? Like, this is Naughty Dog that we're talking about. Like, were you really that surprised? Anyway, in the game, Joel and Ellie eventually arrive at Bill's town, and it's rigged to shit with booby traps. And eventually they find Bill and convince him to help them find a car parts, and a battery, which eventually leads them to a high school that's overrun with infected. And in this section, we encountered the first bloater, which Joel has to take down. But eventually we get the car and the car parts, and Joel and Ellie eventually leave Bill's town and Bill to his lonesome and head to Pittsburgh. Now that's everything that happened in the game, and literally zero of that carried over into the show. But instead we learn how Bill survived the initial outbreak and how he set up Bill's town. We see how Bill met and eventually fell in love with Frank. We see how Joel and Tess originally met Bill, and it was actually through Frank, which is another change because Joel didn't even know who Frank was in the game.
What, you know this guy or something?
Frank.
Who the hell's Frank?
We get to see Bill and Frank fend off a raider attack, and then we get to see Bill and Frank both decide to end their lives together after Frank gets sick. That's right, Bill is fucking dead. And you know what? I'm 100% okay with that and thought this episode was fire. I can see how this episode could be boring to some people, seeing as there's only really one action sequence in the game and it literally lasts for like a minute and a half tops. And I can also understand people not being down with them going full in on Bill's gayness, especially for someone who hasn't played the game. Like, that shit probably felt like a train coming out of left field and hitting you right in the chest, no cap. And for me personally, like, them initially kissing and them kissing in the bed and stuff was a little bit much, especially since Bill's character was already a weird dude to begin with. Speaking of which, shout outs to Nick Offerman, amazing actor, an amazing performance in this show. And all I gotta say is, yo, it's your Emmy, Ron. It's your Emmy! Like, this was definitely an Emmy bait of an episode if I've ever seen one. And I'm curious to see how many more Emmys that this show is gonna win, specifically because of this episode in particular. But yeah, outside of the whole bedroom scene, which in hindsight isn't as bad as some other shit that I've seen on TV. Like, the way that people were acting, I thought that they showed like full-on penetration. And I was definitely expecting that because this is HBO after all. And y'all know, if y'all watch Game of Thrones, they have no issue straight up showing sex, gay or straight. But yeah, outside of that 2 to 3 minutes that had me a little bit uncomfortable, the rest of the episode was fire. Like, I like how the show made Bill a doomer who actually turned out to be right.
You live in a psycho bunker where 9/11 was an inside job and the government are all Nazis.
The government are all Nazis!
Well, yeah, now, but not then.
I like that we got to see Bill actually setting up Bill's town and like rigging everything up and setting up his traps. Like, I really liked seeing the whole town just come together. Seeing how Bill and Frank met was pretty dope too, even though it was a little bit convenient for me that, you know, the first non-infected motherfucker who falls into one of your holes in 4 years just happens to be gay and also into the stuff you're into. Like, really? So crazy. So the first ever person that pulls up to your crib. And also, seeing how Joel and Tess originally met Bill was a pretty nice addition too.
We're gonna make friends, and we will invite them to visit.
What?
Can you not, please?
Nah, he's tripping. Oh! And overall, the whole story that they told of Bill and Frank was actually kind of beautiful. And I'm not gonna cap, this show caught me. That's crazy. Oh! bro. Like, if you look at this story objectively, you know, two characters and their relationship over the course of 20 years, this is a pretty good and emotional story. And I honestly thought they were gonna keep Bill alive because this would definitely explain why he was such a dickhead in the game. Because imagine if you're a dude who's probably been bullied and called crazy your whole life because you're a weirdo who's into conspiracy theories and shit. And you find the one person who cares about you and accepts you and all your shit, who makes you feel like you've never felt before. And then that person dies and you're left alone in this shitty post-apocalyptic world by yourself. Again, like that would turn anyone into an antisocial dickhead. I mean, hey, let's look at the first 10 minutes of Up. Now I know that I'm more open-minded than others, and I get that this episode isn't for everyone. And that's okay. But people have been review bombing the show on IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes, saying that they're done with the series, that they're never watching another episode, and all this other shit. And I'm just like, really? Now, hey, if you're upset because the adaptation was a little bit too drastic and you wanted to see something that was closer to what we got in the game, then I get it. I wanted to see Joel fighting upside down while trapped, and also I wanted to see that bloater encounter. I'm still waiting for it, show. Give me that bloater encounter. And I also get if you want to say that the episode was boring. Like, I get it. But we all know why a majority of people were upset. Now, I don't like to use this term a lot, and I'm not gonna call you a homophobe just because you didn't want to sit down and watch damn near softcore gay porn when you tuned in to watch a survival action drama show. Like, I get it. Like, that... it was a lot. But if you thought that the story that they told was bad solely because it was between two dudes, then you might be a homophobe. Because I guarantee you, if you replaced Frank with a Francine, people would be eating this shit up. Like, I could almost guarantee it. People would still be upset that they changed Bill from the game to the show, but people wouldn't be nearly as upset as they are now. Like, they wouldn't be review bombing this show like they are now. Let's be real, they wouldn't. Like, whichever way you might feel, right or wrong, this episode told an amazing emotional story. Period. But yeah, after that major adaptation, Bill is dead, and he left Joel and them a car and access to all of his supplies. And he also left them a note which kind of sparks the beginning of Joel's character arc with Ellie. Because in this letter, Bill says,
I used to hate the world, and I was happy when everyone died. But I was wrong, because there was one person worth saving. That's what I did. I saved him. Then I protected him. That's why men like you and me are here. I leave you all of my weapons and equipment. Use them to keep...
And now with Tess gone, Joel needs somebody to protect. And I really like this letter scene too, because it kind of just summed up just Bill's story pretty perfectly. And also, like I said, it kind of sparks the beginning of Joel's character arc with Ellie, which I really liked. We then got to see a little bit of a nod to, you know, the crafting and upgrade system from the game translated into the show. That was pretty cool to see. Hey, he's about to craft! There it is! And then we see Ellie yoink a gun because Joel still won't let her have one, which will definitely come up later. And then they're headed off to Pittsburgh. And that was episode 3 of The Last of Us show on HBO. A very polarizing episode for sure, because this is the second week in a row where we've had big adaptations from the game to the show. And honestly, I'm all for it, because if there's anything that can keep this now 10-year-old story still fresh and new and engaging to me, then I'm all for it. But yeah, my favorite part of the episode was definitely the sequence where we follow Bill at the start of the outbreak. We get to see how he, you know, how he survived the outbreak, how he had things set up, how he set up Billstown. Like, I really thought that it was cool to see how Billstown came to be. Let me know what your favorite part was down in the comment section. But yeah, that's pretty much it. How did you feel about this episode? Did you think it was trash? Did you think it was amazing? Let me know how you felt about this episode down in the comment section below. Thanks for watching, and I hope you guys enjoyed. And if you want to see more, like this shit. Oh yeah, and one time for the one time, let me get a ear.